So on the 39th day, I lose 6 feet of mucoid plaque. It was jet black in the shape of my colon. So, like up and down like this, 6 feet of it.
Incredible.
Can you imagine? Rock hard,
No.
like rubber. And as I released it, I was shaking. My whole body was shaking. And it was, and all the things that I had taken in and consumed mentally and consumed emotionally started to be released.
Welcome, everybody. This is Mind the Shift, and I am Anders Bolling. Today, my guest is my dear friend and podcast colleague, Jaime Onofrey. Is that the right way to pronounce your second name there, your last name?
Absolutely. Well done.
I'm really happy to have you here. I know you've been very busy, so welcome, Jaime.
Thank you so much, Anders. It's good to be here.
And I know some parts of your life. I know a bit about you, but not that much. So you will have to fill in the gaps here. But I know you've been to film school. You're a film industry worker, and you're in conscious media. What do you call conscious media? You're a podcaster and a spiritual entrepreneur, a connoisseur of consciousness, as you call it yourself, and a near-death experiencer. Those are some really interesting titles there. And let me start off with a question, a very concrete question. You just recently went to an ayahuasca retreat. That sounds really intriguing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? How was that? Are you still in that mode, so to speak?
Well, like anything in life, Anders, each journey is different. Each experience is different. And I had the call from a dear friend and shaman who, when he says, come, and the call is there, that I go. It's a deep honor and a deep privilege to be invited to these sacred ceremonies that are very small and very intimate and that are designed around really just going home, remembering who we are, remembering our connection to our source power, but also excavating messages and going through the journey of tapping into, what's hiding in some of our subterranean depths that needs to be brought forward into our consciousness so that we can actually pull those weeds and become more of who we are. So become more holistic in our expression in the world. And so it's a deep inner journey. And I'm definitely still vibrating in that inner journey, feeling quite quiet, which many who know me know that's a state that I get into frequently. But I also love to talk and connect. But right now, there's a groundedness to my being, a clarity. There's an integration and a coherence that happens with this medicine. It's a very powerful medicine. I'm sure many of your listeners have heard of it. But a lot of people don't experience it. And it's an ancient, intelligent plant medicine. It's a combination of actually a root and I think probably the best way to explain ayahuasca is that the intelligence of the plant kingdom came forward and downloaded and offered up this unique combination of plants and roots to be able to create a medicine that is a portal to access the consciousness. And Grandmother Aya, as she's referred to, is very adaptogenic. So she's going to go to the levels of being or the parts of the body that need to open the channels, that need to be cleared. And so you really need to surrender to the process, which for humans can be a very difficult thing to do sometimes. And there's a lot of, the unknown and going into the unknown. And this is really for those of us that are connoisseurs of consciousness, as you referred to it. This is letting go of the sides and being willing to carry through the current of a journey into an exploration of who we really are and to receive the messages that can help us tap into our birthrights. So it's a very, very powerful medicine.
Yeah. So if you don't open up, if you don't let go, if you don't open up to to what this, like you say, Mother Ayahuasca, Mother Aya, or this intelligence of the plant can do with you, where it can take you. If you don't do that, what can happen? Can it be as terrifying experience in that case, or is it?
Well, it really amplifies what's living inside of us already.
So if you're
It's
afraid, you get
an
more afraid.
amplifier. It shows you what is hiding and needs to be revealed. It's very difficult to put it into words. I mean, it's almost profane to put the experience into words. First of all, because it's very personal and individualistic. For example, my very first time doing it was very sweet, very gentle. Grandmother Aya was very caring and very, she held me and she allowed me to open up and to flower and to blossom. And I felt very safe. I felt very held. And so a lot of people, they do have an experience that, is gentle. And if you have a good shaman who is giving you the proper dose of the medicine and really knows how to create the space, because it's also the space and the container. We need to feel safe within the container that we're experiencing this in and the people that we're with. And so when people talk to me about it, I often encourage them, you don't want to just go and do this with anyone, anywhere, anytime. It requires preparation with diet, no smoking of marijuana, no drinking alcohol, staying away from red meat. You really have to prep the terrain so that when you take in the medicine isn't running into a lot of blockages or toxins, because the medicine will purge. The medicine will want to move those things out of your system to get to the core of your being, which is like hara. The hara is the core of the being, about 2 or so inches below the belly button. And it really goes straight to that aspect of being. And if you've got a lot of gunk in the way, whether that be in the form of emotional toxins or physical toxins or mental toxins, then before the medicine can go to work at a deep level, those things need to be purged. And that's what can be difficult for people. That can be a difficult process.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about the purging part, and people talk about them throwing up a lot when they take this for the first time and all that. But it's part of the process, and then afterwards they feel lighter and they feel and they can experience all sorts of things. And
it's a tool, like many things. So one of the things that, because we're really getting to know each other, and so you might not know some of these things about my life, but I did a 41-day fast in the desert, so no food
41
for 40 days. And actually, that's where the inspiration came from. And there's a bit of a funny story behind that. I was reading a book by Gabriel Cousens called Spiritual Nutrition. And he kind of wrote the Bible on vegetarian eating called Conscious Eating. And so I was studying his work at the time because I had died twice. And as a result, really struggled with my health, really struggled, physically and mentally, developed all sorts of issues from these 2 near-death experiences that really altered my consciousness, having a near-death experience, but also really challenged me I lost my health. So I had to go on a health journey to regain my health. And so I went to the doctor at one point, and the doctor said, "We don't know what's wrong with you. We've done a barium scan. We've done everything. There's nothing wrong with you." And of course I knew that wasn't true, because I wasn't able to digest. I wasn't able to eat properly. I was sleeping 18 hours a day. I couldn't think properly. I had terrible mental fog. I was really a shadow of my former self, which was an athlete, professional athlete, and very vital, vibrant human. So I knew that something was wrong because the contrast was stark. And so after I was told by this doctor that it was in my head, I realized, okay, nobody is going to do this for me. I am going to have to, take this journey and reclaim my health and figure it out for myself. And so it was a really powerful process, the learning, the reading, the finding the mentors, starting to really listen to my intuition about what was needed, what to take into my body, what not to take into my body, because there's always a new fad. Some people say that only eat meat, this is the way to go. And other people say only eat vegetables, this is the only way to go. Or, there's so many things we could subscribe to, and it can be very, very confusing. And so Gabriel Cousens had his thing, but it was spiritual nutrition, which basically means that we gain energy from so many things other than food. And
Yeah.
because we're so enculturated to believe that food is our primary source of energy, we become very addicted to food and develop very negative patterns associated with how we eat. And it becomes very emotional for many, many people. And our culture does not support us to really have a good relationship with food. And we end up actually having an energy loss rather than an energy gain from food. There's very few foods and combinations of foods that give us energy. And most people aren't aware of how to eat in a way that gives them energy. So they feel tired from food.
Yeah.
They're also not able to digest and assimilate the food. And because I was having difficulty digesting, I really resonated with this. I thought, wow, so if I can get my energy from the sun, from sun gazing, and from the land, from earthing, and from the ocean, from taking in the minerals from the salt water, and from breath, from prana, from the life force, and there's all of these other things that are available to me. I became I've always been a seeker since I was a really young girl, but really it was a whole other level in my spiritual journey, because it took a lot of courage, obviously, to go out into the jungle,
Yeah.
or into the desert, rather.
Desert. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, into the desert. Yeah, it was what is referred to as a vision quest. And at that time, I had a lot of physical issues, but I also had a lot of emotional issues. I had been in a very abusive relationship, and often we know that if we're attracting abuse in our life, it's because there's been abuse inside. There's abuse living in us, and then we attract it and manifest it externally. And I was basically at that point left for dead in a hotel room.
Mm.
And it was very life changing, because I knew that if I didn't do something drastic, something extreme, that I would never have the life that I was destined to live, that I needed to really go deep and peel back the layers. I knew that I was in there. There's nothing really to
Could you
heal.
feel at that time that you had a life that you were destined to live? You could feel that deep inside, or was that kind of a mental process, or was it something that you had felt all along? I mean, all through these terrible experiences with abuse and everything.
Mhm.
Because
Mm.
many people witness that they don't really understand that they have this core life force, the life that they are supposed to actually be able to live.
Yeah, that's a great question, Anders. Personally, I'd had enough experiences up to that point to have understood that there is something there that
Mm.
that is powerful, and that there is a mission and there is a purpose. But life beats us up. There's a lot of trauma that occurs in life, and everywhere we turn there's a lot of trauma, and we take it into our bodies, and then we're not taught how to let it go. We're not taught how to release it. We're not taught, we're taught how to brush our teeth and brush our hair, but we're not taught how to have an inner shower. We
Yeah,
have an
that's
outer
true.
shower, we cleanse our bodies, but we're really not taught how to cleanse internally. And there's an old saying that says the issues are in the tissues. And we really do take things into our bodies. And that's a very real experience for me. So
Mm.
skipping ahead to the fast in the desert, it was an extraordinary experience, an educational experience for me. I became like a scientist, or what's known as a rishi, like a spiritual
Mhm.
scientist.
Yeah.
And every day I would hang my enema bag from a tree, and I would give myself an enema. And
What
during
is
this
that?
process, so like a
Oh,
colonic, your own,
anima, ANIMA. No?
ENEMA.
Okay, okay, okay.
It
Sorry.
cleanses out the colon. It cleanses out the colon, right?
Ah,
And so there's different enemas you can do. You can do wheatgrass enemas, water enemas, coffee enemas, and they all have a different effect in the body. But what happens in our digestive system is it gets really filled with the inability to assimilate vitamins and nutrients and all of the macro and micro, goodness that is accessible, because we develop something in our colon called mucoid plaque. And that mucoid plaque comes from iodized salt and pharmaceuticals and basically excessive abuse of food. And so we get this lining at the inside of our colon, and it can be quite thick, and it inhibits the ability to absorb those nutrients through the colon into the bloodstream. And that's actually the most powerful way. Cancer patients and very, very ill people, they actually don't ingest through the GI tract through the mouth. They actually ingest through an enema or a colonic because it's the most bioavailable. However, if it's got this mucoid plaque surrounding it, you're not able to absorb. And this is common for most people. It almost becomes like tar, black tar. So when I first started the fast, I thought, okay, I'm not going to last 3 days. I thought, okay, 40 was the goal. And I laughed every day. I thought there's no way, we're saying 40, but it's not going to happen. And then 3 days went by and suddenly I wasn't hungry. And so the teachings of the fasting,
those are the crucial 3 days, huh?
They're the most difficult to get through and get over. It's like we're moving through our addiction.
I did it for a week once. That's the only experience I have from fast. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and how was it for you doing that?
Well, it was like you say, after 3 days, you stop feeling hungry. That's a very interesting experience. And then you sleep less. You wake up 4 o'clock every morning, feeling just very, very clear in your head, and it's very interesting. You feel lighter and all that. But yeah, so I guess I could have gone on for another week, but it gets boring in the end, and you want
it's amazing how much time you have. You have a tremendous amount of time.
Yeah,
you don't realize how much time we spend, shopping and cooking and preparing and cleaning food. It's amazing the amount of time it frees up.
Yeah.
So one of the things that occurred during the fast that was really fascinating is one of the premises of a really deep, good fast is that you won't be hungry until you've really cleansed and cleared what needs to be cleansed and cleared. So hunger literally won't return until your body says, okay, we're good. And so often, because of our addiction to food, we won't do the duration of the fast to really get into the deep layers of toxicity, whether that be, the harbor of heavy metals, deep in our tissues, and in our fat. We actually store a tremendous amount of toxins in our fat cells. And so as we start to release fat, we start to release emotions and things. And in the mucoid plaque, we also have a lot of emotions and memories. So as I was releasing, so I wasn't hungry. Then finally on the 39th day, and believe me, Anders, I never thought I would make it that far.
It's incredible. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it was extraordinary. I had been meditating. I had been swimming in the ocean, taking in the sun's light rays through my eyes and through my skin, using earthing and the minerals in the earth around me and the rocks.
You did drink water, I hope.
I drank water and it had some minerals in it, but I quickly realized that we're very in tune with nature and there's a lot of minerals available to us in our environment. So I did take them in until I became fine-tuned enough to be able to recognize and to feel into where they were in my environment and how to access them within my environment. A lot of the stones and the rocks and the earth, it's all right there available to us, and good water, good fresh water as it moves through rocks and develops a vortex. It becomes very filled with life force and minerals. And then we're getting all of those trace minerals when we drink the water. So it's really just, if we go back to nature, it's all there for us. But we've become so removed from nature. So on the 39th day, I lose 6 feet of mucoid plaque. It was jet black in the shape of my colon. So, like up and down like this, 6 feet of it.
Incredible.
Can you imagine? Rock hard like rubber. And as I released it, I was shaking. My whole body was shaking. And it was, and all the things that I had taken in and consumed mentally and consumed emotionally started to be released. So every possible mental image that I had taken into that point started to come and flash up in my consciousness. And one of the first ones was an early memory of watching Poltergeist. I was 6 years old and it was on television. I had gone to bed and I crept down the stairs and I snuck around the corner and my grandfather was watching it. He'd fallen asleep in his recliner and I sat there and I watched Poltergeist at 6 years old. Well, you can imagine the imagery that my consciousness took in. And what's powerful about that is by the time children are 12 years old, They have taken in 14,000 simulated murders on television. And the
Wow.
brain doesn't
Gee.
know the difference between what we see and what is actually real in reality.
Mm,
So
mm.
as far as the brain is concerned and the being and the consciousness and the psyche is concerned, most of us have been exposed to a tremendous amount of negative content that really negatively programs us and negatively imprints on us. And then we take that into our body and into our tissues. And so
Mm.
as I started to release this is, it's one thing to hear something as a concept. It makes sense. But when you actually experience it as you're purging, not just purging mentally, but also emotionally, I felt hate. I felt rage. I felt anger. I felt resentment. I felt bitterness. I felt criticism. All these thieves of the heart, all the things that thieve us of our
Mm.
vitality and our life force and our power. We give it away to these things because nothing can claim our power unless we give it permission. We give it permission every single day, really unknowingly, because we don't realize how this imagery impacts us as really powerful bioenergetic beings.
And did
And
you
so
feel
I
like you
thought,
could release these feelings at that point when you were doing this? You could actually, they were kind of leaving your body. You were feeling them, but they were at the same time leaving you. Was that the case?
well, you know what it's like to have, we all know what it's like to have a good cry.
Sure.
It was like
Yeah.
having a good cry and then a good scream and then
Mm.
shaking and then sadness, deep depression, anxiety, and it was like reliving all of those things,
Mm.
but very intensely, very potent because they were all being released at the same time. It was like my cells were kind of exploding. It was very, very, very intense. And it was scary. It was scary. And I was alone. I was being guided, but I was way off on my own because you're intended to really be going through this on your own. So it was scary. And I actually had my head buried in the sand, and I didn't want to look up from the sand. And then as I started to shake and purge emotionally, mentally, then I purged physically, and then afterwards, you can only imagine. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And I just sat there and just was, in total awe of the experience, but I wasn't hungry. I thought, okay, you think I'd be done, but it's in
Sure.
layers, it's in layers. And so after that, the 40th day came, and this is a very powerful number. And one of the reasons that Gabriel Cousens recommends a 40-day fast, or that Jesus did the 40-day fast, and why this number is so powerful, is because it's a very transformative period of time where our whole body can replace everything on a cellular level as if we're a completely new being. It's
Mm. Mm.
very powerful. So on the 40th day, that's kind of, the tipping point.
Yeah.
But the 40th day came and went for me. And I thought, oh boy, am I ever going to eat again? How much stuff have I got to get rid of here? And I was young. I was only 24 years old. I thought, oh my goodness, how
Okay.
much do people who are in their 50s and 60s have to purge?
Yeah.
And now on the 41st day, I had the second purge, and it was another 3 feet of mucoid plaque.
Oh,
And it was
really?
like weeds, the deepest weeds, the dregs, the absolute bottom of the barrel got pulled.
Mm.
And when that happened, my eye color changed. The peace I felt was extraordinary. The connection with my environment, with the animals and the plants around me, the consciousness shift was extreme. The desert came alive. Normally the desert looks like this dead, inert place. It
Mm.
came alive with
Mm.
life that I literally wasn't capable of seeing before that.
Mm.
And then I was hungry. I was
Then you
really
were hungry.
hungry.
Then you felt like a Snickers bar.
The first thing I thought of was a hamburger.
Oh, really?
Of course, you would never eat something that after a fast, you'd kill yourself. The first thing I
Sure.
had was cantaloupe juice, and it tasted like an orgasm. It was just like, that's actually probably not the best way to put it, but
Mm.
it tasted
Oh,
just
I see what you mean. Yeah.
extraordinary,
Yeah.
and all of your senses are so alive. But what's really valuable about that experience is you're really able to have a different relationship with food. And once you clear all those old things from your being, you're more intuitive and tuned in to what is right for you and what you need in that time, because you can feel it. You can ask your body and you get a resounding yes or a resounding no. So it completely changed my body, my mind, my spirit, and my connection with understanding that, I don't need to rely on food as my only source of nourishment. And so
Mm.
now I still to this day have a very unique relationship with food and with, vital force. I have a lot of people ask me, how do you do what you do? How do you have so much energy?
Yeah, and not having any cravings at all. Many people, I mean, they can work a lot, but at in the process they need a lot of coffee or a lot of sugar, or they
Mhm,
need to eat things or drink wine or
mhm,
whatever. They need
mhm.
to yeah, to give themselves some treats once in a while in order to be able to work hard. But you don't need that, do you? Or you can just
Well,
go
I'm
when you need.
still very human, so I still like my treats.
Well, you don't sound very human when you tell us about that story. Have you done anything similar since then? This is a couple of decades ago, I guess. So
Mhm.
anything? Not, I guess, not 41 days again, but maybe you have fasted once in a while for a week or so, or
Well, what I did, I mean, is very unusual. Obviously,
mm,
I'm aware of that. This isn't something that most people are going to go and do. Most people don't have the time, and
no,
it's really intense. And I would recommend everybody do something like that if they can at any point in their life. It's life changing. I'd also recommend, I would love it if everyone could just have a near death experience and have that experience too. But the takeaways from them,
mm,
are so brilliant. But you don't have to do it so extreme. I mean, people, I think the week that you did is profound. We don't have to go to the extremes to actually experience what I experienced. I think you can
no,
have it in a microcosmic kind of way, in a
no,
smaller way, and just do it more often. I do encourage people. I love intermittent fasting, giving the digestive tract a chance to have a break. And also it creates space for breath, because
mm,
actually of
mm,
all the
mm,
things that we can do, the breath is the vital access point for maintaining high levels of well-being and being fully nourished at a really deep level. And most of us have no idea how to breathe.
yeah. I know. I did that breath practice that you were teaching on the one of your platforms the other day, and I actually fell into tears there for a while. It was pretty profound. I loved it.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
you
Wow.
touched upon so many interesting things here when you were talking about this experience.
Mhm.
And I want to come back to several of them, but just to go back a little bit to the ayahuasca experience again, and you telling us that what you experienced on day 40 in the desert there, that you felt that the desert came alive, and you could see
Mhm.
more profoundly what what reality was uh,
Mhm.
deep down.
We
My
call it a
question is,
lifting of the veil. You
yeah,
lift the
yeah,
veil.
you
Mhm.
lift the veil, see what
Mhm.
reality really is, and this is just an interface. This is just actually a dream. What we think is the real world, the physical world, and all that. But so the ayahuasca experience, I think people have different opinions about this. But you just tell me what you feel when you hear this question. Do you think that it's something that most people that are interested in the spiritual, doing a spiritual journey, should do to try this ayahuasca experience in order to, in a way, get a shortcut to accessing these other dimensions, these other realms that you really want to get in touch with, to be a fuller, more whole person and be able to find your inner self? Or do you think that this is something that some people, many people, or most people perhaps can achieve by other means, by maybe not fasting for 40 days in the desert, but meditating deeply, or what do I know, some other forms? I mean, reaching the exact same state that you are looking for here. So do you
Mm,
think
mm.
ayahuasca is a good
Yeah, I
thing
think
to
I
try?
think I know what you're asking. I mean, it's what is the intention? What is
Yeah.
the goal? What people are wanting to achieve? Um, I do not recommend ayahuasca for very many people,
Okay.
because it's it's not something that you can, it's not a magic pill. And I think we live in a culture where we want everything to happen and we want it to happen yesterday. you know
Yeah.
and the evolution of consciousness and the spiritual journey is a process, and it can actually do damage. It can actually do a significant amount of damage to people who aren't mentally clearing the slate, who aren't physically clearing the slate, because there needs to be space. And this is not something that we are very good at typically in
No.
our culture, is to create the space for the medicine to be received, And so if we don't have the space, if we're really busy, if the mind is super full, then the experience is the medicine will first have to clear the space. And that is very traumatic for people who aren't, able to receive the medicine, because the
Yeah.
medicine by nature, and I'm going to do my best, because I'm not mother Aya, I'm not grandmother Aya, but my experience of her is that she wants to go right to the core of your being. Well, if you've been hiding, which most people have been,
Yeah.
some aspects of themselves, or they've got skeletons in the closet, unresolved issues, the medicine can really help you tremendously to heal those things. But you need to be in process first before coming there. So if someone's not a meditator, for example, or has never practiced meditation, I wouldn't encourage going to that. It's like going to university before you've done kindergarten.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
medicine is very
That's a good
potent.
analogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
meditation
I
is
mean, there's so
something you
much I could
practice,
say.
of
Mhm.
course, every day. I take it.
I get up
It's,
at 4. So 3:34 is the magic hour.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's when we're naturally in my biorhythm, and I'll speak for myself. And I find that most people who get really connected with their natural biorhythms, when we clear the vessel, when we
Mm.
become very clear channels to receive energy, and we don't have a lot of things bringing our energy down or making us tired or lethargic, then our natural instinct is to get up at that time, because we run on a certain circadian rhythm. And so I'm a very, free within my space, but very structured within when I eat, to really serve my vessel, the body vessel, in the best way that I can. Because certain organs, and this is the Chinese medicine philosophy and actuality, in my experience, is that in certain windows of time, different organs are active. So there's actually certain times of day where it's important to, say, eat, certain times of day where it's important to eliminate, and where the body's just naturally supported by those organs that are active within that rhythm, within that
Okay.
time frame.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I try to meditate every morning as well, but we're not talking about 4 o'clock. We're talking about a lot later. But it has to be in the morning anyway. I think it's very difficult to have a good meditation in the afternoon when your mind has been so busy for so many hours. It's very difficult to
Well, that
find the
breath
calm.
that you experienced in the Thrive Tribes Academy course,
Yeah.
this breath is a shortcut. So there are shortcuts, and breath is a good one. Breath,
Mm.
if there's anything that I encourage people to do, definitely shifting the diet. But we all know that. We all know that we need to shift our diets, but it's really hard to shift the diet. Um, it becomes a matter of will. And it's
Mm.
very difficult, because all of these background players that are in the subconscious can be very, they're like snakes in the grass. We end up falling flat on our face,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and going
They
back to
sneak
the
up on
same.
us.
Well, and we make the same mistakes over and over, and then we beat ourselves up.
Mm.
And it's very difficult to just through sheer will to make change in our lives. And so through the breath is the key. So to come full circle, ayahuasca, this medicine journey, it really helps you to connect in with your breath. And at
Okay.
the end of the day, breath is a powerful way to really um, connect ourselves with the, let's call it, spirit world, the great spirit, God, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. It's, the first thing that we're given when we're born. We take a big, deep breath. We're given that life force.
Yeah,
And it's the last thing we do, when we leave our body,
I
is
know.
our,
Yeah. It's
so
a
that
beautiful thing to
relation.
think of. I mean, you people don't think about breath that way, but it's really profound when you think about it. It's actually life. It's what I mean. Physical life is breathing, really.
Mhm.
as you
Hmm.
say.
You can tell a lot about a person or yourself, after some study and observation about where you're at through your breath. The breath
Mm.
is very revealing. My father used to say, you can tell a lot about a person by their shoes. So I always used to look at people's shoes.
Well, that's
And
another
now,
shortcut.
yeah, yeah. And now, we can tell a lot about people through their breath, because the breath doesn't lie. We
Mm.
can, the nature of the breath, and very quickly through the breath, we can change our state. So it's free, it's always with us, and it's extremely powerful. So
Mm.
for those that are new to breath work or have studied breath work for a while, of all of my thrive hacks, as I call them, thrive hacks, things that help us to thrive, quickly, that we can, take into our life and put into practice right away. The breath is definitely one of them. And it doesn't need to be a big practice. I think, for me, just people just starting, just incorporating a practice into their life and having a morning daily practice is life changing. That you
Yeah,
do every single day is absolutely the game changer for all of my clients. All of them that incorporate a morning ritual that aligns with their dreams and their goals. And really, align is the right word. Who do we want to be, and what and who do we want to align with? And then the clearer the vessel, the more that we can manifest and attract those things into our life without the lag time.
mm,
After fasting, we're able to manifest much more powerfully and much more quickly. So if we want to achieve something in our life, we're taught to do more, work harder. And it's
mm.
very counterintuitive to actually pull back and do less and be more, because when we open up that space to create, there's so much space. We're 99.9% space inside of our bodies for a
Oh, even
reason.
more space. I think it's just.
I
I
think
mean,
even more.
it's
Yeah.
just energy. There's nothing there really. We're just,
Yeah.
more or less
Yeah.
dense
Yeah.
conglomerations of energy fields. Yeah. So.
So in Mind Tribe, which is one of our tribes in Thrive Tribes, the platform and ecosystem for transformation,
Mhm.
this was downloaded to me in meditation.
Mm.
So it's amazing too what can sort of come down, when
Yeah,
we're accessing the higher realms of
I
divine
totally agree.
consciousness
I
and
totally agree. You
intelligence.
sound like Eckhart Tolle there. He talks about these things, and it's. I mean,
Yeah.
it's true. It's if when you experience it, start experiencing it, you realize it's actually very very true. And as you say,
Hmm.
doing less means that what you do has a higher quality, and you spend
Mm.
so much energy, so much time. Uh, when you don't have this mindset that we are talking about now, you spend so much time and energy worrying about things that might happen, or you worry about things that you did that you think you might have hurt somebody or so, which are not true, which are just ghosts in your mind, so to speak. So, and it's just pointless, really. It takes so much energy. You don't realize that they're not true. You think you're so busy, but most of your
Mhm.
busyness is just you pondering over things that aren't real. So you
Mhm.
actually have a lot
Yeah.
more
Well
time than
said.
you
The
realize.
the key of meditation, I think I've taught meditation for many years, and most people come to meditation thinking that this is about clearing their mind. And that's a very, very small aspect of it. But really, what I like to, you know, sort of shift the script for people about what meditation can do for them in their life is that when we start to empty the mind, and this is why you hear monkey mind, because as you're
Yeah,
emptying, just like I did in the desert, you're releasing and emptying the cup. And as we empty the cup, and the more that we can maintain a clear canvas, an empty canvas, an empty cup, so to speak, that's not filled to the brim with information and emotions and ideas and worries, but just filled, because most of us, our cups are very, very filled.
mm,
And when we begin to empty that cup, then that canvas becomes an open slate of pure potentiality, and that pure potentiality is very, very, very potent. It's very potent when it's not diluted by all of these other distractions.
yeah.
And when we're very addicted to distraction, and so when we're constantly distracted, emptying the cup feels like a very arduous, difficult task.
Yeah,
So that's why we start slow. We start with 5 minutes here and 5 minutes, and we just get used to getting into this, what we call the seat of the soul, which is the whole body becomes like a basin. It becomes a
Mm.
container, and that
Okay.
fills with life force. It fills with breath. It fills with pure potentiality. And that's when we get really clear with our visualization, very clear with our feeling, and then we can attract and draw the things into that vessel that we want to have into our lives. And we're very creative beings. We're highly, highly co-creative beings working with our source power, but we can only do that from a place of that seat of the soul and that vessel and that
Mm.
opening to receive what it is that we're calling in through our intention. And that intention must be very clear, and we must know what we want and then feel it and then invite it to come into the space for that manifestation to occur. And when we get to this place, I've heard people say it's remarkable the time that it used to take to, quote unquote, make something happen. There's no force anymore. We come from a place of pure power. There's no force. It is like bees to honey. It's a completely different way of operating in the world, but it's really
Yeah.
who we really are. It's our divine
Yeah.
birthright, which is our ability to create the life that we want and to remember how powerful we are and that we have that ability, because we have amnesia because of these veils. And ayahuasca is one tool that can help us do that. But it is one that I really encourage people to be, unless they're quite far along the spiritual path. I caution people, greatly, unless they,
Yeah.
can work
That's
through a
probably
couple months of preparation.
a wise thing.
Hmm.
Wonderful. We dive directly into the deepest of the deep things here. And before we leave those, I really want you to tell us a little bit about your near-death experiences, because I mean, talking about the experience in the desert, which was probably a very pivotal, sorry, experience. Those must have been really, really profound as well. What happened, and how did you? How did they change you? And I mean,
They're big stories. They're big stories. I've had three.
you
Um,
had three. I thought it
I've
was
had
two.
three.
Okay.
Well, I had two where I flatlined, when I was in a coma, and the other one, my heart stopped twice. And so, those are the two that were quite physically intense. And then the other one, I didn't flatline, or there was no deep, trauma physically, but I also crossed into another, realm, another dimension, so to speak. And that fluidity that I've been offered, I was offered it at a young age. So it's part of my soul mission to
Mm,
understand, and to befriend death, to know that it doesn't exist, and
mm.
to be able to speak into that and to live into that. It really is an illusion, and it's, for me, the greatest encouragement and greatest wish I have for humanity is to, if everyone can really understand that there's no such thing as death, then we can
Oh,
more
that would
fully.
change so much. It
Yeah.
was. It would be wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we really stop living. Many, many people. It can be very heartbreaking. From just a purely human perspective, how many people live in fear of living. They stop living because they're so afraid of dying, and
I know
it's
that's
it's,
the
it's
paradox.
irony.
I have a friend actually. I think, yeah, I told about this in one of my solo shows. There, he it was my best friend for many years when I was young, and then years later we hadn't had contact for a couple of decades. He committed suicide, and he did this because I knew so much about him that he had this anxiety, he had this angst, and he was so afraid of dying. He was so afraid of death all his life, and he was so infringing. So eventually he couldn't bear it. He couldn't stand it. So he committed suicide. And isn't that the greatest paradox of all? So
Truly.
afraid of dying that you take your own life. So it's really, really tragic. But I guess that was his experience. He probably needed that experience. His soul needed that experience for some reason. You never
Mm,
know.
mm, mm, mm.
Probably he knows now. But
Well, when we're
so,
not connected with life force, life is very unbearable, because we end up really drowning in a world that, where we don't get to access any of the
mm,
things that we've come here to explore,
mm,
and so it can be, I have a deep compassion, and I do. Thrive Tribes, our movement is really about accessing our human potential, and in the different sectors of life, whether that be, in your case with the mind, really understanding how powerful we are and the power of the mind to create our own reality. I mean, it really is potent. And so through your show, people can really start to understand how to do that, which is such a gift. We also can access things through the portal of the heart, through love. We can also access through, entrepreneurship is actually another lane. We call that Boss Tribe. And through Boss Tribe, it's an act of service. The change makers out there who are creating businesses to make change. That's another portal to access life force and to
mm,
and to be in service. And right now we're at a very critical tipping point in history where people are being called to give their pain, to give their gifts, to give whatever it is that they've accumulated up to this point. We're at a very powerful threshold right now. And so people are going to feel that stirring, and they might not know what it is, but they're feeling called to your show, or they're being, called to ways where they can start to awaken within and start to tap into that deeper meaning that makes life so beautiful despite its tragedies. Because every day we wake up, life is going to throw so much at us.
mm,
It's going to, for example, I have people say to me, gosh, your near death experiences, that must have been so awful. There's so much pain and so many years of struggle and losing, not being able to work and go to school and losing your
mm.
health and a lot of loss and a lot of grief. And absolutely, it was, I've spent many times on the floor in my life feeling like I needed, the forklift to pick me up off the ground, the cosmic forklift. But sometimes life brings us to our knees, so that we can really remember who we are. And it takes a great humility,
Mm,
actually, to be
yeah,
human. And some of the most powerful people I know, some of the most powerful, spiritual masters, the most powerful, business masters, people who are really good in any realm of life. These are the people that are actually the most humble, because they realize that the more that they know, the less they know. And really that we're not the doers. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. Ultimately we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And so
exactly.
every breath that we take and everything that we do in life is such a gift to just even be able to breathe and to experience it. And when it's painful, we're conditioned through our reptilian brain to, move as far away from pain as we possibly can and to lean into pleasure. But then we're really missing half of life.
Mm,
And this is
yeah,
not something our cultures or typically any teachers or anyone teaches. And it really is a vital part of life, because right now we're getting a lot of pain thrown at us and we
sure.
don't have the tools, to deal with that pain and to lean into it, because the pain has a lot to teach us. And
Mm,
actually, it's very challenging to think, well, why is there so much trauma, or why is there so much evil or negative dark things? And when we can shift our perspective, and shift the mind
mm,
shift,
yeah,
it can give us the ability to reframe our ability to find peace and presence in every moment, whether it's pain or pleasure. And that
exactly.
really is the human journey that can be very challenging, but is really what I encourage people to find mastery in. And that's a journey that's different for everyone. For me, it was the cosmic 2x4 multiple times over and over and over, to understand the blessing that is life, and that, my relationship
Mm,
with source. But we all have something that's trying to speak to us. And typically it comes at us again and again and again. And it keeps knocking on our door until we open the door. And when we open the door, we can receive the gift, and then we can move through it to the other side. And really, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And so it's like the chicken or the egg. What do we do first? Do we change our eating, and then that's going to change our life? Or do we change our life from the inside, and then that'll change our eating?
Mm.
So, Wayne Dyer, I love him. He's one of my amazing mentors, and he's a dear brother. And he always said, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And the
Yeah.
only way we can do that is through the power of the mind, and to go into the inner space and to begin to create from there, understanding deeply the quantum science
Yeah.
that tells us that we have the ability to influence our outer world through that inner
Yes.
space. And when we get that, then this whole planet will
Yeah.
shift into an
It will.
entirely
Yeah.
different way of living, working, being, and raising our children. And that is the call right now. That is the call that all of us are receiving right now, is the call to remember who we are, to lift the veil,
Yeah.
and
We are
then to start to
powerful.
recreate the future. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We are powerful, and we are united. We're all together in this, and we are all one. Actually, we're all part of the unified field, I believe. So yeah, what you're saying is really, really beautiful. You have touched upon to get a little bit more concrete now. You have touched upon these creations that you have created, these entities you have created now, the Thrive Tribes. You have something you call the Thrive Tribes Global, and it's a movement, but it's also what you might call an ecosystem, different tribes for different purposes. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the purpose of this is and what's happening with this?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So Thrive Tribes Global is a global movement for transformation and change. It is actually an ecosystem. So you said it, just that's exactly what it is. It's an ecosystem, and it's almost like an ascension process. And it starts at an entry level for any tribe. So that could be an entry level at Truth Tribe, where we start to understand the nature of some of the things that are going on externally in the world and start to understand what that means. And Truth Tribe is a lane that a lot of people get into because they start to, question what's happening in the outer world. And they want to make change, but a big part of making change is understanding the problem first. A lot of us don't want to look at the problem, but we need to understand the problem in order to create the solution. And then Freedom Tribe is really about maintaining our sovereignty, maintaining our freedom as human beings, understanding common law and our common law rights, and our birthrights as human beings. And that's a very powerful movement right now. It's building very, very strongly. A lot of people don't actually even realize that we're in chains. So, there's a lot of education that happens there. And it's just an invitation for people to join the tribe that they feel most compelled to join right now, but they're all interconnected. Ultimately they're one tribe. And that is the hub at the center that connects all of the tribes. But the purpose of it is that each tribe, each sector, works on an aspect of humanity that needs to be elevated. So Wealth Tribe, for example, we work on helping people with their abundance blocks. We help people with being able to understand the new economy, the shift into digital assets, the importance of connecting in with gold and silver as assets, particularly right now, and really understanding the head of the beast, which is the current financial system and how corrupt it is, and how enslaving it is. And when you understand and start to really put the pieces together, Wealth Tribe really fits with Health Tribe because and Freedom Tribe, because when we start to understand our personal sovereignty, whether it be our soul sovereignty, okay, which is Soul Tribe. Okay, that's the woo-woo tribe. That's for all of the people that want to dive into consciousness and deep soul practices. But for example, as people start to wake up and understand that the current system is very corrupt, and they're simultaneously maybe in Soul Tribe and Health Tribe, they can put the pieces together that what we consume in our bodies really has a lot to do with what we create externally, the abundance that we create in our life, the people, the business opportunities in Boss Tribe, which is our entrepreneurs tribe. And people start to make connections and then get onto the platform. So when people get onto the platform, they have the opportunity to then bring their own business, their own ideas, their own platforms, and to share them within that co-creative, collaborative, powerful, connected community, and to essentially, stand on the shoulders of giants and to get the message out there more quickly to help the world to thrive and to shift at an accelerated pace, because then everyone is working together. So people really need to find their Thrive Tribe first, deep dive into that Thrive Tribe. Most people have 2 or 3. Oftentimes people who love Health Tribe are an Eco Tribe, because again, they understand that we need to be eating good food, which means we need to have clean soil. We need to have, food that is non-GMO. We need to have access to quality seeds. We need to have, a certain way of taking care of our food supply that's local. And, there's a lot of permaculture. And so so there's a lot of crossover between those sister tribes. But as they all work together and people are called to the round table, Anders, because it really is a call at this point.
But just to explain, to explain for the audience a little bit more here, how can people access these tribes? What's practically, what is it? Is it on social media platforms, or where can people find these?
Well, we're everywhere. We're ubiquitous at this point. We're like growing like wildfire. So we have a podcast called Thrive Tribes TV. So that's a really great place to access and keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening right now, currently. And we've just started. So it's in its infancy, it's in its genesis, but it's expanding very, very quickly, because so many people are connecting in with the need to transform and make change and focus on the solutions rather than the problems. But people can find us definitely on the podcast, and Thrive Tribes Global is the hub for all of the tribes. And that can be found on Instagram, that can be found on Facebook. So you can, find Thrive Tribes Global on all the major platforms. And if you just actually enter in Thrive Tribes into any social platform, all the tribes will pop up, and people can then go and, like and follow and get involved in any of the tribes. We also have a Thrive Solutions Hub. Yeah. And this is a really, really powerful portal for people to be able to actively, I think the problem that we're solving is people get up every day and they want to make a difference. Especially people I find right now who have kids or grandchildren, or they just feel this burning desire to get out of bed and make a meaningful impact. They want to be a part of a tribe and part of a community that is out there and actually shifting the needle and actually making an impact at a really exciting scale in every sector of life. And so the call is to people to wake up out of bed and go, I'm a part of something, and I can move the needle, and one person can make a difference when we all come together this way.
Yeah, and it can be empowering and wonderful to realize that you're not alone in your thoughts about these things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we also, if people want to, there's a 3-part video series that's completely accessible. It's at jaionofrey.com. Maybe you want to put it in your show notes, but it's jaionofrey.com. And people can opt in to get the 3-part video series. And that's a really nice way to kind of come into the community and get the weekly emails that we offer. And we also have a Thrive Tribes Council. So if you've got listeners that are really hardcore and they're really resonating with this, then they can contact me through any of the social media channels. And our team, we have moderators that we're building out for each of the teams, leaders, multiple leaders, people who are really passionate about the environment, passionate about the economy, passionate about health. And then we start to get leaders in those fields and bringing their own platforms to the directory. So in a very short while, we'll have a global directory on the website, which is thrivetribes.com, where people will be able to access the global directory for the top businesses, courses, services, and products that help us to create a thriving planet. And that'll be divided down into each of the sectors. So it's a beast.
It's a beast, but it's a beautiful
beast.
It's not Beauty and the Beast, it's a beautiful beast. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not something that, you mentioned, as if it was mine. And I really have to say this, Anders, and I really, first of all, appreciate you for asking and for clarifying, but it really doesn't belong to me. And I was very clear when it came to me and it was downloaded. It was like a grid. And I was told through this, very powerful visual, because I'm very open to receiving information. And when it came in like a lightning bolt. It was so
Okay.
powerful. And it was about, there had to be 12 tribes. Not that there couldn't be sub tribes, that develop over time, but 12 core tribes to make up the 12 major aspects of life with one tribe at the center. And that it was going to require unity in community and an amazing group of enlightened entrepreneurs, change makers, healers, parents, grandparents, anyone that wants to see a shift for our future now, to make the change start happening now. That's the call. And for anyone that wants to get more deeply involved, we also have a course, and it's a very, very entry level course. We wanted to make it available for everyone. And that can be also accessed through any of our social media. And that's called Moving from Survive to Thrive. So we've got a little bit for everyone. And I really want people to understand that this is a living, breathing ecosystem that, like I said, I haven't claimed as mine, that really belongs, I believe, to the people. Because the shift now is from us against them to we. And what's in it for me, and competition, to cooperation and community and connection, all the co-factors, I call them, the collaboration. And it's a big shift in paradigm, is that we really are starting to work together and to move together and support each other, and to continue to make sure that we totally and completely take care of our planet and take care of the people, moving away from corporate structures that really rape and pillage the planet and the people, based in greed. And we move into systems and paradigms and ways of being that support people and planet, and that we actually need very, very little to make that shift. There should never be kids starving on this planet. We live on a very abundant planet. And I believe this time happening right now is so powerful, because what it's doing is it's bringing to the surface and revealing where we need to course correct and where we've gone wrong. So now we have the opportunity.
Just wanted to ask that as a final question, which I just apologize that it's such a big question, but after having explained all of this ecosystem and what you want to do, what you want to achieve here, all of us coming together for a better world, do you believe that this time that we're living in now is a crucial time? Because, I mean, this is something that people have been saying on Earth several times throughout history, as you know, but there is something special about this time, isn't it? And if you think so, then why? Why is that?
That's such a great question, Anders. It is the question. Einstein said that we choose, that we either live in a hostile universe or we live in a friendly universe. And it's pretty easy to look outside our window right now and feel that we live in a hostile universe, isn't it? So,
well, talking about the pandemic, I guess.
Yeah, well, everything. I mean, everywhere
Everything.
you turn, it kind of feels like the sky is falling.
That's also a mindset thing.
Absolutely.
If you ask me.
But I would say the majority of people, this is how the outside world looks to them at the moment. And at that appearances, if we're just talking appearances, the world does appear to be falling apart. But there's an old saying that I used to teach when I taught my meditation classes, is that sometimes just when everything is falling apart, or just when it seems like nothing is happening, that's when everything is happening.
Yeah.
And right now,
that's very wise. Yeah, that's true.
We're going into the eye of the storm, actually. We're at a very, very, very powerful pivotal point. It's a tremendous transformation of humanity. It's a tremendous opportunity. And it can be very difficult to look at it this way. But with the proper intel, which all of us have access to through creating space, through our practices of clearing the vessel and opening the channel to receive. That's right. We go within. This information is universal. It's accessible to everyone. And when we tap in with that, we can suddenly have the ability to completely reframe what is happening right now, and understand that because we're moving into a completely elevated consciousness, humanity, and everyone's moving together, and it may not feel like that. But because we're all moving together, the weeds have to get pulled, right? Old paradigms, old systems, old institutions, they just don't make the shift. And so at the same time that we're birthing new systems, that we're birthing new ideas and innovations, we're also having to learn to let go of what's not serving us anymore, because humanity is just not there anymore. And we really will never go back to the way that we've been doing things and living and seeing things. We're about to see the veil this year, 2020, which we call 2020 vision.
Mm-hmm.
2020 vision is all about that which has been hidden being revealed. And we're seeing that, aren't we? We're seeing that at every turn and every step.
Seeing a lot of revelations, but I hear also that this is, I mean, people are saying different things, but generally people are talking about these years around 2020 and a couple of more years as pivotal, and there's something happening with. But I think, as you say, that this is obvious when you look at it, and I think maybe we have to wait couple of more years for it to be more obvious and for things to fall apart. But I think as you say, that we will see governments crumble and systems crumble. Maybe the money system, maybe who knows what's going to happen.
Definitely the money system.
I just think it's very
There's
interesting.
No doubt about that.
You don't have to be afraid. It's just, I mean, as long as people are living on this planet and living and loving and doing their things, it's all going to be fine.
Well, it's inevitable. And, we can be active participants in it. And, my Freedom Tribe, they're very active on the front lines. My Truth Tribe, they're very active on the front lines. Soul Tribe is all about it being an inside job. Kind Tribe is all about just random acts of kindness. Let's just care for each other and be good humans. And so we really have to settle into, where we want to be and ask ourselves, are we experiencing the life that we want to experience? And if not, why not? Because we get to choose. And that is the wonderful thing about being human, is we get to choose.
Yeah,
and we get we have free will, and we get to say, okay, what am I going to subscribe to, and what am I going to let into my world? And if it's not what I want to be living, then how can I change the channel? And each tribe works like a channel. Each tribe is very much its own universe, its own channel. And if people's natural inclination right now is to breathe, then find your breath tribe, whether that's the Thrive Tribe's breath tribe, which obviously we would love, but any breath tribe, if that resonates with you. If you feel that, I think too, it's that withdrawal from the outer world that we need to call on for each other. All of us need to, focus at home and make the change at home, make the change first to ourselves before we can change anything outside of ourselves. So right now, my focus is just being with my 3 children, caring for my husband, caring for my home, making good meals, walking in nature, and just really keeping things simple and being very mindful at what I allow myself to consume, because of course I've been shown that that's very important and impactful. What are we eating? What are we watching? What are we listening to? Because that is what we are taking into our consciousness, and then our consciousness recreates it. So we have to be very vigilant and very disciplined at what we allow in. And that's conversations, that's friends, it's everything. So that's a discipline that I really encourage people to take. And it's life-changing as well. But we have to get really, really good at saying yes to the inner yes, and be really okay with saying no to a lot of things that are not going to serve us in elevating. Because at the end of the day, if we elevate ourselves, then that stuff starts to fall away and no longer is a part of our reality, our personal realities. And as we more and more of us have that as a personal reality, the more we'll start to see it as a collective reality. And we're already seeing that. It's quite tremendous. I mean, the fact that we live at this day and age, and we have front row seats to perhaps one of the most extraordinary transitions in human history is really something. And we've all been called here at this time to participate, not to observe. We've actually been called to participate.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna be a ride.
Right now, we all get to go, okay, how do I want to participate? What role am I going to play in this extraordinary time in history? And of course, my call is to call all change makers. If you feel compelled to make change and to make transformation, both in your personal life and in the globe and the planet as a whole, then it's the Thrivevolution. The Thrivevolution is here. We
Yeah.
lovingly call it the Thrivevolution, and it is here. It's now.
Jay, fantastic. This has been wonderful. And you were mentioning your family there. Right now, my family is just getting back home, so we need to cook some food here. So unfortunately, we have to wrap it up around here. But you have mentioned where people can find your Thrive Tribes, the Thrive Tribes global ecosystem, and all that. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast here, Jay Onofrey, and good luck. Extremely much good luck with your commendable project here.
Thank you so much, Anders. I know that you're a deep part of the fabric, and that you're a brother. And I'd just like to say a final prayer to all those listening, and to you, my friend. May we rise and thrive together.